Saurabh is an international award winning management consultant, a visiting faculty at leading B schools, and independent director. And he also serves as an advisor on the boards of both listed and non listed firms. He has worked extensively with clients on building their growth roadmap and vision, unlocking value creation, organization transformation, and driving internal and external stakeholder engagement. Saurabh writes for many leading business magazines. He is also a keynote speaker and panelist in leading B schools, conferences, and forums around the world, such as the World Communication Forum in Davos. He is a TEDx and Josh Talk speaker.
You may go wrong, but if preparation goes wrong, everything goes wrong. You've got to take a call and decide, will that thing that you plan to do create any kind of value for your customers, for your audience? If I work with 500 companies, only 5% have done that.
So, without wasting much of your time, let me introduce you to the man himself.
Hello, Saurabh. So thank you so much for this early morning hour interview round. And I was really excited. We're looking forward to the fact that I'm finally going to discuss with you something that I enjoy learning about, reading about. And I've been fortunate enough to have a little space to work, how you go about it and how BOD works. So brands of desires for the people who are unaware of the whole thing, but I'm sure it's nothing to be unaware. It's something that's there on the Twitter, on social media. You can read so many insights about the branding. So I have you from straight the thought leader of the same. And so why don't I begin by asking you that why are you doing what you're doing? So if I talk about, I know you and the branding aren't separate, and I keep watching you all over, and something that I connect more inside your talk is about you connecting with some people, who they are, bringing that out, and then helping the CEOs of the company or the founders of the company or anybody per se to evolve that way. So would you like to just take us through that?
Sure. Well, thanks, Shruti, for inviting me to your wonderful show. It's my pleasure and honor to be here. And the first question is very big. I mean, I would just say that there is. I could go on, and but you'll have to pause me where you think it's appropriate.
It's appropriate.
Yeah. So so to answer that, let's go a little bit backwards. I mean, how does it all start? And to find out why people do what they do, you have to sometimes just go backwards and see where are they coming from. And so in my case, when you put up that question, I like to reflect. When I started my journey, I would say the entrepreneurial journey, about 12 years ago, I had no inclination as such to be doing what I'm doing. So it's not like I was, some people are so sure about what they want to do, and they're like, they just go that path, right? So for me, it was more like, a chance, or if you might put it like serendipity or whatever you put it. I just ended up being there. So you can say that I did not choose my profession. The profession chose me. And I could connect with it, which made life easier. And, so, and when we started talking about branding, we did not talk about it from the lens of, this is what you need to do on social media, this is what you need to do on advertising. And, it was never about that. In fact, that was one part of branding which I hardly ever connected with.
Wow.
So, which is what most other people did. So in a way, it gives you a chance to be unique at that stage, and that it's those early days of entrepreneurship when you're very young. All you care about is being different. You just want to be standing out, and you're really not sure why you're standing out, but you're standing out. And that's why I say it was a stroke of luck or a chance that I got onto that path. But that was just like start, right? I mean, you start just like that. You don't plan your starts, right? But once you get onto it, I think I remember once I started talking about it, started going deeper into the subject, it was this never-ending journey. It's like every day you're discovering something new, and you figure out that uh, I think, I mean, it's like trying to answer questions like, why are some people doing so well and the others don't just get it? And I mean, why are some people so conscious about every little thing that they want to do about their brand? Why do they care about customers so much? Why do they focus on customer experience? Why do they, go back to their organization and inspire people to create great stuff? You know, and all that was branding for me. Branding for me was never about, what's your next campaign, and how are you going to market yourself, and so it was my definition of the way I looked at this world. And so like a child, ignorant child, or whichever way you put it, I was like just stuck in my definition, and I stayed true to it. And I can tell you, after 12 years, I haven't let go of that definition. So I'm still stuck with the inside out approach to building an organization, building a brand, and not so much of the outside and what people think about you. I think it's first about what you think about yourself. Are you satisfied with what you're doing? Do you agree with your own dharma or karma or whatever that is? And then can you carry it forward with full confidence, irrespective of what people think you're doing? So it was about exploring that journey. So it was very selfish of me. So I was exploring my own journey, but in the process, I had multiple clients to experiment that on. I hope they're not listening. But the whole idea was that can I, in along with my journey, help our clients, who are obviously first individuals, people who are leading organizations, and then it's their organizations, right? Uh, can they discover their journey? Can I be a trigger? Can I be a stimulant? Can I be uh, can I inject a new line of thinking on how they should be building an organization, how they should be growing? Can I change their mindset in terms of what it really takes to be successful, or for that matter, what's the definition of success? So is it raising capital? Is it looking at revenue growth year on year? Is it ramping up your profits, or is there something more to it? And besides all of these things, right? So I think that's been the driver. And why I would say it's worked for me so far is because I haven't really felt very tired doing this. So it's been about 12 years now. So even today, when we have a new client challenge, the excitement is exactly the same. You can make a difference. You can change the thinking out there. You can drive a transformation, and that makes you very excited about your work. So I think, so if I were to say why I'm doing what I'm doing, I think to stay alive, to live my own purpose, which I constantly keep redefining. So at some point in time, it was just about being different from the rest. That you want to stand out, and that's a very kiddish thing, but sometimes it's not harmful when you're young.
Not at all.
And and then once you figure out that with age, of course, and experience, that it's not so much about being different, which is important. It's about being truthful to yourself, which is very, very important. It's about getting more clear about why you're doing what you're doing. And in that sense, there's been a lot of evolution for me. And and I think even now, it's just, even talking to you, it could be a process and discovery. So I wouldn't say that I have fully discovered everything which I want to do, but yes, I mean, the pieces are joining together well. So, and that keeps me excited. I can wake up early for it, and I can sleep late. So, so yeah, that's working really well. So if I were to say in a very professional context, I'm working on a very interesting concept around purpose, right? So, and because your question is why, therefore the answer is usually a purpose, right? And so there is a concept I'm working on, Shruti, which I call as building a yogic organization, right? Now, I mean, there's a lot of fun in building an organization, right? Whether you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for another client, or or you're helping somebody do it. And the way I define a yogic organization is one which is, it's absolutely in communion with its purpose. So it's like it knows exactly why it's doing what it's doing. So the same question that you asked me, it's like the practice is on for myself, for my own firm. And can I take that knowledge back to my customers and help them not just discover their purpose, but start living a life which is in line with their purpose? Every action, every word, it has to be goal based. There has to be something which is larger than yourself. And there has to be a real solid balance between material gains, which are absolutely important if you have to make a real difference, but also with positive contribution, to your environment, to your society, to other beings, not just human beings. We are very selfish and self-centered when we talk about, I'm working for humans. Basically, you're just working for yourself. You're still selfish, right? I mean, there's so many other kinds of beings out there who equally belong to Earth and vice versa. So it's about trying to bring a certain level of a high level of intelligence or consciousness in the clients I work with. And I'm not always successful. So let's admit that, right? So you make a real, genuine, honest effort, but sometimes clients are not ready to transform, to change their thinking. They get pulled back by the same old world of just chase numbers, and I mean, there are all sorts of pressures. So no judgment over there. Yeah, everyone is living a life of pressures. Yeah.
That's so beautiful, Saurabh. I think one thing while you were just talking about the purpose and how you started, that again gives me an evidence of the fact that how I define success in one point of time in my life. And I was really figuring out, okay, now, after you graduate, that's the success, you have to walk through the success. So that's how you call, and that's how, you work. So that was how a child thinks, or not even a child, but somebody who just graduated, and, you look at people working on the CAT examinations and all look alike. So when you said you want to be unique, stand out, so that you create something of your own, one evidence that I always keep collecting, and that's my hobby, is that figuring out that anybody who's doing anything on the purpose or for yourself, or that fulfills you, keeps you excited all day, all night. You don't think about it as a work, or it's like you cannot have a line between you and your purpose. So that's again another evidence, and that makes me really inspired yet again. And one more thing, when you mentioned about social media, that was really that really pulls you to think that these days, if you look around, there's so much of hook. Like I don't know, won't mention the apps, but there were apps where the youth who did not have education yet, but they were on the app, and they were just, I appreciate for the way the confidence build up, or the way they, but however the people sitting in the house started thinking that maybe I'm not accepted, maybe I need to put something out, that so that I am there, I'm doing kuch nahi mila, to let me start cooking, let me start this. That's that for me, it is yet a debate, like whether to some people it is imbibing a sense of worth, confidence, and they're picking that up as what they like, and to the other, they want to see that people are doing, and that's what it's like FOMO, that I'm gonna miss this out, so let me just put that. But when you said that, I want to tell this to audience, that whatever they are doing, or whatever you're listening to this, I think this is a university in itself. If you're watching this video, that still you can question yourself any point of time, whether you're doing what you're doing is fulfilling you, right, Saurabh? We can do it anytime.
Absolutely, yes. And it's also about knowing why you're doing something, right? So if for example you get a lot of likes and views and shares and the typical KPIs that we measure for success in life, right? So these are the so-called success KPIs of late, and that's what keeps you going, and that's your fuel. You're going to be in trouble sooner or later. Absolutely. And but then at the same time, it's not okay to also judge that process, because when I look back at myself. I was also doing a lot of things which I wouldn't do again. So it's like I mentioned to you, even this desire to be different,
Yeah.
is
Correct.
a is another way to look for recognition, right? It's another way to seek a recommendation that this guy is doing what he's doing is good,
Hmm.
and that's why you keep doing it. But you figure out, that you discover you've taken some action, and then you figure out that I don't think that was what was keeping me excited. There was
Right.
something else which kept me more excited than the whole idea of being just different. So, and you only learn that when you go through those ups and downs in lives, and you figure out that this is what you care for, this is what you don't care for. And therefore I think, to all the youngsters listening, it's okay, what you're doing. Just keep doing it, but try to be aware and try to start identifying which are the things that really connect to your heart, and which of these things are just playing with your mind, and making you, sometimes things which just make you feel good, versus something which really touches you deep inside.
Correct.
It's a tough distinction. It's not an easy distinction, right?
I'm sure.
uh, it's like I could really enjoy eating, a pizza maybe, and it makes me feel good. But if I overeat it, then it becomes poison, and then I can't sleep well. So it's like, how do you strike that right balance between, the material life that we all are a part of,
Hmm.
and at the same time not let your life be just guided by that. Let it not be something which becomes your, I mean, you become a slave to that life. I think that's the only thing. So I mean, there are people, by the way, Shruti, who could have millions of followers,
Mhm.
and yet they're not slaves of those followers. They could still
That's
be
true.
quite disconnected to the whole idea.
Yeah.
And I think those are the kind of role models we need to listen more
Absolutely.
about. That you can be as successful as you are, be the most famous person in the world, and yet you're like, but this doesn't really matter me. So you know
Correct.
so because if you start getting bothered by that, if you start getting guided by that, if you're driven by the fact that this time you got a couple of thousand followers less, then you know that it's like a quick test to let you know that you're in some trouble.
Right.
And yeah, and take help, and have a conversation with people who
Yeah.
care for you, and let them know that you're facing this challenge. You can't sleep if you don't get enough likes. And trust me, there are lots and lots of people out there who are struggling with that,
Yeah.
who have a challenge of not being accepted, maybe in their early childhood to
True.
later in life, and they're looking for that affirmation all the time, that
Correct.
and that becomes their fuel, which is a bit dangerous for me. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm with you on that. And yes, absolutely correct. And those people who don't get driven by the likes and the kind of views they are getting are the people who really found, or who are really deep down, like you said, connected so much in their work that they don't know what's happening around. They're so much connected with contribution, or
Yeah.
making a difference in people's life, and that is so inspiring. And that's what I get connected to when you just said about your journey, or maybe however it is. Like, there are things in the business, I'm sure, sort of, that could be, I mean, the second thing that I wanted to bring here was your challenges. And how do
Yeah.
you, it's so difficult, like branding. It took a sudden, it became a trend of lately. Or I'm just saying a trend because when everybody starts talking about it, there are two things: either it is
Yeah.
a trend, or people really get it that okay, we need this. At the same time, you correctly mentioned that not everybody is ready, I would say, to
Yeah.
really imbibe those ingredients you may serve them with, in terms of getting connected to their brand. And that, of course, uh, I won't say you weren't successful. Of course, you're being generous in that, but yet, of course, like, there are few out of hundreds would say they need time. So maybe we put it as they're not ready. So what are those sort of challenges you face in this whole process of
Yeah.
maybe having people really seek that knowledge? Like you just said, that talk
Yeah.
to people. Like, I
Yeah.
love talking to the people who are like experts, or experts in my definition are the people who are really working on the ground on that thing, and they
Mm.
are not so know it all, but they can feel and experience, and that's what connect to your heart.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's anything like that. Yes, but again, having said that, there are people who resist to, or maybe they are not aware that I can talk about this. If you talk about the branding, so what do you have to say about the whole idea of your challenges, of course, as a brand, a branding, what do you call, a visionary, I would say, who you can see, and I really find it inspiring. Uh, you don't work with companies; you actually work with people, in the
Yeah.
company who make the company. So
Yeah.
that's really inspiring. So I want to really know, how do you overcome those challenges, and yes, what
Yeah.
are the challenges?
Yeah. So I think overcome, of course, is a different story altogether. But let's talk about the challenges first.
Correct.
And the first and foremost challenge that you're encountering when you are trying to work with a client or a leader or an individual, as you said, someone who's at the helm of affairs,
Yeah.
is mindset, right? And when you're trying to change someone's mindset about a particular topic, you know how difficult it can get, right? So it's like you have a certain stereotype about how the world looks like, and whether it's definition of success or definition of brand. Some people think that branding is about becoming famous. Some people think it's about you know trying to be able to sell more products,
Mm.
and that's why and that becomes a reason for building the brand. And none of this is wrong. It's just that when it is seen in isolation, when it is seen from a just a single point of view, it becomes a very myopic thing. So I think my process has been largely about trying to provide the people I work with a very holistic view of the concept. So I mean, think of brand at the center of an organization, which is helping you make every single strategic decision in your company. Whether it's capex, whether it is customer definition, whether it is even marketing, whether it's your HR strategy, whether it's so it's like whether it's finance, operations, people, doesn't matter. I mean, but every decision that you take, if it's guided by who you are and what you want to be, which is what the brand is at the end of the day. Uh, and that includes marketing decisions. Marketing is not outside it. It's not something that. So a lot of people think that brand is something which is like an afterthought. Once you've designed your product, once you built an organization, now let's worry about the brand, right? And I think that's where it becomes very myopic. So a lot of my work has been about trying to integrate and introduce the idea of brand uh, at the center of all decision making, at the core of it, as a guide to even how you think about product development, and then the entire journey which it takes to be successful as an organization. So thankfully and interestingly, while I never get called to share this insight, I often get called for uh, basic stuff because that's what people understand. So but when we start discussing it and I share this perspective, uh, most clients, in fact, I would have a very high success rate of people who resonate with this idea, and they are like, this is it, this is what we really wanted, and we were not getting it. They don't call me for this, but they get this, right? Now the challenge is starts after that. So acceptance is very high, very very high, right, of this concept. I would say almost 99%. But uh, the ability to take a firm decision, please remember that most people are not very good decision makers. So they they're scared to take the big decisions. They're okay taking the small ones. Small ones means, okay, approving a budget of 2 crores for marketing, no problem, that's okay. Yeah, but changing the ethos of an organization, changing the way you do things. If you've been into all your life, you've been selling a product which is not great for the environment, and suddenly you change that product mix. Now that's a big decision, right? It's not a small cake. And 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 your brand is guiding that. That's the definition that you agreed upon, right? uh, After you got introduced to it. So I think leading that journey, taking a important firm big decision, leading it to execution, is I think the job of very, very few leaders, who I consider as really successful. So that's the fundamental challenge you encounter, right? I think you end up educating people the right way. They also understand that this is what they need, but very often they're not able to drive that down their journey. It's like जैसे किसी को समझ आ रही, somebody figures out that this is where I have to go, but they're like, I don't have the guts to go there, and that's the biggest, I would say, challenge that we encounter. And of course, there's some people who just have absolute like 500% faith in you, and they will just say, okay, Saurabh, we've got it, we were waiting for this. Now just tell us what is the next step. And I tell them the next step, then this is done, now next step, and then next step. So there are those kind of clients as well, right? And I think it's easier to deliver projects in that way, because then they trust you fully and you trust them. You're taking them down the right path. And but at the same time, there is massive responsibility, in terms of guiding people to a path which requires making significant decisions. These are not small tactical stuff. It's like changing the course of your organization, right? And so I feel that that's where the challenges start occurring. And of course, you could think of micro challenges like the leader has decided what needs to be done completely in sync. He's also started executing it, and then some people don't follow that path. I think those are manageable things, because but if the guy at the top of the system, the guy who's created the organization, is not able to follow a path which is the right path for him or her, right? And irrespective of how much someone like me keeps pushing them, but they don't have the guts to go all the way. I mean, that I would consider as, sometimes as a personal failure. I wish I could do a bit more. And which is why not every project is successful. Not every journey takes you to the ultimate position. And going back to that definition, right? I mean, the idea of a yogic organization where you're able to live a real purpose, a real goal, while trying to, build a brand and an organization. So for me, an organization and brand are one and the same. I don't see them as uh, different in any way, and it's just the way people understand it. But it's really about the way you water your plants, and the way you uh, take care of them and provide them sunlight. And it's a very slow and a tiring journey, but for some people it's very fulfilling. They just enjoy that process so much that they don't care about how long it takes to be successful. And for others who get distracted very quickly, someone comes and says, are you foolish? Who does what you're doing? And I'll give you a result tomorrow morning. So that's when I think people again get distracted.
Yeah.
And they're like, at the end of the day, why am I doing business? And they forget. So they're like, I started to do business because I wanted to be rich or build a really big house and become very famous. And people have all sorts of answers. And here somebody like Saurabh comes and says, okay, this is done now. Now what next? You made your house, you become famous, you get called everywhere, you get awards, some paid, some not. But the whole idea is, what next? Is it fulfilling for you? Can we now go a bit deeper? And while I'm on my process, there's a distraction from outside which I can't control. And there's a distraction from inside yourself, that, hey, is this guy right? I mean, can this really be true? Is this the right path? Or should I just go back to my old self, which was so much more comfortable, where I was just focused on the PNL, and life was so much more straightforward. So I think people are scared. Let me put it like that, Shruti. People are really scared to make the big move. They know it pretty well that they need to make it someday. So in that sense, when you say that, are some people more ready than others? Yes. uh, and it's not because of me. I am usually just a tap, a trigger, and they're probably getting ready for a while. It's just that if I end up being at that place, that time, and they're ready, then we start the journey, right? In other cases, I could do not forget a tap. I could be pushing them every day, And even after a year, they're like, but sort of, there's another world. Can we go back? And I'm like, of course you can, but then I may not have too much of a role to play. And
Yeah.
then you choose me, or you choose a different goal. So yeah, so that's how it becomes a very challenging choice of decisions I have to take every day. And work with people who are tough. They're not easy to transform.
Yeah. You just shared simply about the challenges, which sounded like a lot of work. I'm sure it does include a lot of work. So,
Yeah, good to see I'm graying so rapidly. Yeah.
It is a lot of work. And when you said that it takes time for people to really, so I'll tell one habit that I off lately began after the whole pandemic. And you felt like, oh my god, what happened? I mean, I may lose a job, or maybe people are losing job, what's happening? And I never experienced, I've heard as a child, as a story, like in 2008 thing going on, that was recession, but this was really horrifying. And I didn't go deep down to think of the children, how you explain. You have a child. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't go there because I said that, I kept recollecting the childhood episodes I have. Oh my God, thank God we had that. So being grateful about everything I could do till now. So that reminded me of one practice that every evening, when you said that, it's so important and so lengthy. It looks like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? Why do you talk to yourself? And I have this habit of reflecting. Oh my God, what was so grateful today? And what am I up to for tomorrow? Am I like, and tomorrow is something that I don't wait for. It's like, pada nahi. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
So that reminded, when you work with people, it is, I had a visualization of a deep down well where you keep digging out what's your purpose. So you keep going down deeper and deeper. There's no end into that. So maybe today I'm talking to you about something which I want to do, but maybe when I add more experiences, or read more, or talk to more people, connect more with the world, I think I'll go more deeper. If I choose to. Again, I'm highlighting what you just said. It's a choice. Either you can walk the path you show, like when you talk to your clients, or something, there's a comfortable couch, you can be there. And I read something, a beautiful line: the moment the comfortable couch gives you pain is the time you've outgrown. And that was like, oh wow, it is so profound. And what you just said really goes right into the place where I really feel like, as maybe somebody who aspires to do a lot of things, and a lot of people who are watching this, maybe they're in college, or maybe they're thinking what to do. And you know what, amazing fact is that I have in my community, like people I know, very young, about say 13, 14, 15 age group of children. And that time I used to think, okay, 10th mein or 12th mein kitna score karna hai, क्या कहाँ पे खेलना है. Those guys have started building, like, what should I do about my career, should I choose my hobby versus studies? So I think this is maybe because of a lot of information, and a lot of people doing this looks like easy, like media makes it easy. I had written one thing that even I started feeling, oh, you write a book and then you make a podcast, and then you go release it in different platforms, and then you interview people like in your community. That's it. That's a success. And that's what it looked like for a lot of people getting viral, and this and that. You're so right. It pulls you there. So and that really traps you. And it's like you're walking silently, passionately to a path where you want to do something, and वहाँ पे आपको दिखता है, अरे, results, quick results. And that's like how I experience. And that comes to a question. When you were talking, I was preparing for the next. Of course, because it is so beautiful, Saurabh, while you were answering, it naturally leads me to the next question, and which is so amazing. And the question is, what are your sources for inspiration as someone who inspires others? So I'll be very honest. I am truly inspired by your work, and of course the way you're so connected with your work, and that's what gives me an opportunity to have a selfish interest of learning this morning hour. Like, that's what I enjoy about the fact that I'm able to connect, communicate. The blessing is that I can learn more. by talking to people and asking for it. So guys out there who resist to ask questions to anybody, hey, how did you do it? I think you should go and ask that question. Maybe that can inspire you for your own finding your own purpose, or maybe discovering it. So why don't you tell me about your sources of inspiration? How do you stand right there, like how you are, smiling, energy, like you said, you're excited to meet any client who's in problem in terms of his approach towards the whole product or service?
Sure.
What do you have to say?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think you're very kind, Shruti. So I think we're all, kind of in our journeys, and all of us are special in our own ways, and so are you. And what I would say here is that, we don't really realize for a very long time why we're doing certain things. Some people are lucky to discover that pretty early. So I mean, the fact that I was doing what I was doing when I turned 25
Wow.
is when I began this journey, which is very early for a lot of people, and you get hooked to it. So people are experimenting at that stage. You're like, let me do this for 2 years, and then let me try this for 1 year, and then let me do an internship in between. Let me take a sabbatical. Let me go back to college. So I was like done with my studies by 24, 25, and just got hooked. So and I would say that's sheer chance. I would say I could be in an exactly similar position as a lot of other youngsters or young people, young adults are, which is a very confused state. So in my case, I just got really lucky. Let me put it like that. That I really found doing what I'm doing with a lot of excitement, and I continue to enjoy that process. Of course, there is evolution in business model, and what you were doing earlier, you evolved it further. All that is journey. And then, something hits you 9 or 10 years down the line. And you, so it was not exactly a comfortable couch, but it was certainly a lot of, disturbance. I was a very angry person. I was like, why are people not changing? Why are they not really doing things the way I would want them to do? And you become angrier by the day. As entrepreneurs, two things happen to you. When you don't get results, you become more angrier, and you don't get results, you also become more grounded. You become, you stop flying all the time. You figure out that, it will take a lot more effort than you anticipated, right? And 2017-18 is when something hit me real hard. I discovered, and I was reading, of course, a lot. So I think the nature of my work requires me to be fully updated and keep looking for inspiring content. And I was reading a lot of people as well. So in between, I read a lot of amazing, extraordinary content that Osho had written. And I was just be curious, how does this guy write so much? And all that's said about him is so different from what this guy really was. And extraordinary content that he'd written out there, right? But there was still something missing. I mean, I would sometimes read something in his book and be deeply inspired, but I'd still not connected with myself. And then we went on a family vacation. So this is a short story, right? In between, I hope we're allowed to share that. Yeah.
No, that's totally allowed. Yeah.
So we went to a family vacation to a nice, quaint home in the hills in a place called Piora. This is in Uttarakhand.
Okay.
A little bit close to Nainital, but we didn't want to be in the main city, so we wanted a nice little home. The host taking care of a lot of things, and we just relaxed, not like a typical hotel.
Yeah.
And we had no idea why we went there and why I selected that particular property out of all the properties out there, right?
Yeah.
And just ended up being there. And that's where the triggers, it was like something was calling you all the time. And there's something in that home which was very beautifully done, like a Spanish cottage or whatever you call that. And there were books lying all around, and of a being or a human, who had absolutely no connect with, at least till that time. And I started picking out those books. And who's this guy? Who's this person? Still no connect. It was just they're just around you, so you keep observing it. And then we got talking to the host of the cottage, and I think my wife played a much bigger role over there. She found it more interesting than I did.
Okay.
And and she started finding out and said, "This is something interesting. Who's this guy? I mean, such amazing stories about him, and books are all over."
Mm.
And the owners of the home, of the host, then started speaking about him, and they were like, "Oh, he's our guru, and he's someone who's transformed our lives." I was like, "Okay, you've heard many stories like that, of gurus coming to your life and things changing, right?" And then they said, "What are you doing?" So we were there for about 4 days, and they were like, "What will you do? Sitting at home, amazing food, amazing weather. You can look at the stars in the night, and there's a nice telescope, and all those things are there. A lovely living room. My son was playing drums over there, and there was so much fun." They were like, "But what are you going to do all day sitting inside? Why don't you just step out and there's a temple nearby, about 2 hours away. Just go and visit that." And we're like, "Okay, let's do that." This wasn't intended to be a spiritual trip, but now that you insist, let's go there. And this temple was in a place called, or it's called Kanchi Dham. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah, and this temple was created by, or you could say, the guru who lived over there. His physical body doesn't live anymore. Is Neem Karoli Baba.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've heard of him, also called Neep Karoli Maharaj.
Okay.
And, so at that time, again, it was like curiosity, right? I mean, the curiosity was that, so when I was reading those books, I figured out, Steve Jobs has gone there before he created Apple, and Mark Zuckerberg, it was still the worldly material thing, right?
Yeah.
That all these great people have gone there, so there must be something great.
Mm-hmm.
But when I went there, it was like he had called me home. It was like, "Come back, son. I mean, you've been struggling for a while,
Yes.
and you're just running around. Just come back." So it's like he called me to the vacation and then back to his temple.
Yeah.
And then I think that's where I actually started discovering that there was a reason why I was doing a lot of the stuff I was doing.
Wow.
It was all kind of connecting, making sense. The dots were just joining so well, and I was at peace. But it was not like the temple visit, but the series of events which started from that vacation to the temple visit, and it still took about 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years to truly, fully start connecting and trusting. So in a way, as they say, the guru discovers you, and so he found me. Probably must have had some connect with him. So interestingly, he left his body in 1973, but that's how these gurus are, right? They never leave, right?
They never leave.
So he felt that this is this guy who probably I need to bring to my fold, and I think I'm extremely, extremely blessed that he found me, and since then the journey has taken added meaning. It's no longer just about me. It's no longer about me trying to be different, trying to help people out. It's just slightly. It's the world has changed. The canvas is, you can say, the operating system has changed, right? So as they say, it's like you get upgraded, right?
Yeah.
With the latest operating system, and your method of doing things changes. You do things from a very different point of view, and it's not that I did not any longer connected with Rajneesh or Bhagwan Rajneesh, as they say, or Osho. I still connected with his knowledge, but his knowledge was like that of a teacher. And here was a guru, and I was able to create a distinction between the two, So the guru didn't have to teach me anything, and he would yet transform me,
Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, you have no clue. While you say this, it's like a वो था ना अभी मेरे पास visual effect डाल सकती हूँ मैं, like the whole, because it is so true. I mean, really, I mean, when we use a lot of logic, I would say, a lot of logics in life. We find out. अरे ये क्यों हुआ, ये कैसे हुआ, and we being so arrogant about the fact that there's nothing exists above
You
me.
tear it, right? You become arrogant about
Yes.
your knowledge, about your skills, about the fact that you're able to make such a big difference.
Yes.
And I think by then I had enjoyed pretty much every possible recognition that come to me, Indian, international, and you're still not there. You're still figuring out, and and you're looking for content like a student would, right? But and you find great teachers as well, and you keep reading, right? And then something hits you like real hard, and then you feel a very different emotion towards your work. You feel a very different life transforming around you. You start looking at people differently, and then it's a world of no judgment. You're there now. You've figured out that your purpose was not meaningless. You were doing things for a reason. They start making more sense, and I could connect dots so beautifully. I'll share an example with you
Sure,
here.
please.
And it doesn't happen immediately. It's like you wake up and say, oh my, is this why I was doing what I was doing? And so I'll tell you this interesting story. So Neem Karoli Baba is actually the name of my guru, and but it's an invented name. It's not his original name.
All right.
And it's the name given by Westerners because they found it easy to pronounce.
Okay, interesting.
Right? So but the name before that, which is a more accurate description, which is also not his original name, is Neeb.
Okay.
Neeb Karoli, not Neem Karoli.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So Neeb Karoli. Right? And this actually originates from a story in his life when he was meditating in this village called Nipurori, and it's in Uttar Pradesh, right? And he was about to take a train, and you're talking about the time when India was not independent yet. So the train systems that come in, the TT used to be a Britisher and not an Indian, and so he just hopped onto a train to go from point A to B, and so the TT came, the Britisher in his typical accent, where's the ticket? And here was a sadhu, right? So he said, I have no ticket. So he just laughed, right? And he's a funny guy, a very funny guy. So he said, but you need the ticket, you can't travel. So he said, but I have no ticket. You can do what you want. So the guy got the train stopped at a location. And he asked the sadhu to step down. He said, you cannot travel in this train. You have to step out. He said, okay, I'll do that. So he stepped out and sat under a tree near at the station. So it's like a village station, not like a big one. Right?
Got it.
And the train wouldn't move. After that, they kept pushing the engine. It just wouldn't move. It was like, what's going on? They went on for 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes. And then some of the Indians sitting in the train, they said that, तुमने वो साधु को बाहर बिठा दिया, जब तक आप उनको वापस गाड़ी में नहीं बिठाओगे गाड़ी नहीं चलेगी. And he was like, what kind of logic is this? Right? I mean, this doesn't make sense. And and that's exactly what happened. And that place where this was all happening was called Neeb Karori, and from there the story went on, and he got this title called Neeb Karori Baba. And now, interesting thing about this, I mean, is not the story. I mean, for me, it went beyond it. And, I just kept reflecting, what does this mean? What does this mean? Why? What's Neeb Karori, right? It's just the name of a place, or there's something else to it. And then I started working on the literal translation. So, Neeb, if you think about it as a Avdi word, or, agar aap Hindi roots mein jao,
Right.
is the same as Neev, NEEV, yeah, or foundation, right? And Karori, or Karori or Karauri is the way you call it, is Karara, जैसे खाना करारा होता है या कोई चीज़ करारी होती है.
Okay.
But the literal meaning of Karara or Karauri is strong. It's a strong flavor, right?
Strong. Wow.
And
Strong.
now when you connect those two words, a strong foundation,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's real hard. Isn't that what I've been doing with my clients? Just trying to help them build a strong foundation, connecting them back to their roots, connecting them getting them grounded like I needed to be myself, and that just hit me like real hard. I was like, this is, I wasn't
Water
expecting.
on your face, like wow.
I was like, I just went rushing back to my, I discussed it with my wife, my mom, and I was like, can you imagine I discovered this? And it's like, oh no, you're just mad about your guru. So yeah. So, and gradually that faith just keeps compounding, and you start feeling, you start experiencing this very, very special godly energy, which is protecting you, which is protecting your loved ones, which is protecting your organization. And you can go about your work like with no care in the world. You just feel so safe. And, people live in a space of fear all the time. I wouldn't say I've completed that process, but I've lost a lot of my fear about how the world is going to turn out to be. And I think that comes from that space of faith that you start to have in someone. In this case, my guru, right? So I would say that of all the people or humans or mortals or immortals who've had any kind of influence on my life, I think the biggest would be, from my guru. Because he didn't have to do anything. So, it was like he didn't have to teach me anything. Of course, he has a set of things which he always said, but he never gave any sermons or lectures, never built any institution. He just said 5 things. He said, love all, serve all, feed all, sabko khana khilao. And remember God, don't forget Him, and always speak the truth. Now, if you think about it, you don't need another 6th lesson in life. Even if you remember all of these 5 things and you keep doing it, your life is so much more simpler. You start connecting with yourself a lot more. And very interestingly, none of these 5 things was about what you want. It was about what you can give. Because love all was we have to do to others very unconditionally. Serve all was, just keep doing, karma.
Brilliant.
Right?
Brilliant.
And so it all started connecting. If you really think about when I say a yogic organization and how I build those connects with my work, so it's like your karma is your actions which you do. I could break it down into that love, serve, feed as a concept. And, your dharma, is like speaking truth all the time. You have to be so truthful. And nobody knows if you're lying except yourself. So, and I think working that out, challenging yourself, do I even need to say a lie for such a small thing like, did you eat your food? And sometimes you just tell your mom, yes, I ate, and when you didn't eat. So it's that small, even the small lies, which kind of don't work in your favor. And then there is the third part of it, which is your goal, that remember God, in a way, when he says that always remember God, I see it like always remember your purpose, and your purpose is your God, your purpose is your goal, and if you forget that, you get distracted.
Correct.
And so I was able to build those connects very seamlessly, with the work I do. And maybe that defines why I don't feel tired, and I'm extremely blessed to get that sort of exceptional blessing, from my guru, who found me, lying in an unconscious state, woke me up and said, but you're on the right track, boy. I mean, just keep doing what you're doing and I'm backing you, and that confidence, right? That you're on that track. And then, later, I would say, about a year or 2 later, I had one more further inspiration. So, and I think, again, this must have been my guru's method of trick, or whatever he does. I got introduced to the content from Paramahansa Yogananda, right? Of course, he's written this amazing book called Autobiography of a Yogi, but you never understand it, right? And it's a tough book for most people to comprehend.
Correct.
And I think his content again started connecting me deeper to my work, and what it did was that, so I just felt that this was some divine intervention from my guru, and he said, there are certain things you still need to get right. So, iske liye ye wala is teacher ke paas jao. So it's like he keeps directing you, right? And then this one shadow which is just with you and is just guiding you, all the time. That now go to this teacher, now go here, and there's so many other teachers who come to your life, right, from time to time. But you feel blessed when you know that somebody is guiding you, and you're not alone.
Yes.
In this interesting world. Yeah. So so these are, different kind of inspirations, not the typical Steve Jobs.
I got it.
But but I think all of us have different influencers.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, such kind of people have been the biggest influencers, and the biggest of all, has been Neem Karoli Baba or Neem Karoli Maharaj, or whichever you like to call him. Yeah.
God. But yes, and it was a lovely story. I'm so honored that you took time to share that with all of us. And of course, this is going to stay. And what I kept listening to a fact that while you were sharing, there was nothing that you planned, And sometimes we all keep working on our diaries and we say, oh, plan your life, oh, plan, but not. But when we say that this planning is driven by, or say directed by a guru or universe per se, people who, and I am blessed to have experiencing the fact of having a guru in life, spiritually, of course, because, that's true that materialistically you do, and so things are endless, like you can do, and main is your choice. But how much ever you connect and give your time to just think of the source really and connect, and that gives, like you said, that's your fuel, that gives you actually a way, a pathway, maybe a light, your guru's always there, and that's what guru does. You don't, and they never take credit of that. It's like they're like out there and like wishing them. So it's so inspiring, and I think
they're a great role model, right? The way they've lived a role model for you.
Yeah.
And you keep getting inspired by and that's the amazing thing about it, right? You change your parameters of success, and the KPIs so-called become very different. Yeah.
And having said all this, I am sure whatever you said is something that is to be experienced. If people kind of wait, oh, let me understand how does this happen, that never comes. It's an experience, it's a feeling, it's an emotion that's kind of your soul connection. You don't know, you can't just define a whole thing, but that's I think beauty of it, that every individual has their journey of discovering the soul urge, and people who are ready, like you. How long was this? What year? When you?
So we're talking 2017. Sometime around June, July, the vacation time.
Wow! Wow! So that was a really divine. Really powerful, and I'm sure that's what is keeping you go on, and see, it doesn't matter whatever hour. You're up there because your purpose is something that you live and redefine each day. So powerful. So one thing I want to ask, so having said all of these, you take time up, time to read things, you take time to create things, and like I already said, that's a lot of work. So people who are willing to go on to exploring the whole spectrum of branding or being a consultant, like you shared in our previous call, that there's something that you are coming up with, some project. I said, you let me know. That would be amazing. So I think you have opened a lot of opportunity for people to come back to you to figure out what's up for them. Anybody who looks for personal branding or company branding or just understanding their purpose, I think that's brilliantly open. So I think I would love if you would just share, how can people communicate to you? You're there on Twitter, you're there on, so how would you like to connect with the community now?
Sure. So Shruti, I'm extremely accessible, so it's quite easy for people to connect, and pretty much active on LinkedIn, not so much on Facebook, but that's one professional way of getting connected.
Correct.
And Twitter, I just haven't been able to. I keep putting stuff there once in a while. There are a couple of good, interesting people to follow. Do that, but I'm not so frequent. But yes, so that's one way of connecting.
Got it.
And like you mentioned, we are constantly. So it's not just me alone. So we're a team of about 30 people, right?
Oh wow,
at BOD.
that's so
And
great.
we are constantly working on, creating new ways of, reaching out to people and sharing our content. And we realize that, when we do a project, whether it's a business transformation exercise or a brand development exercise, there's only that much you can do because it's very deeply absorbing. So you can only do a few projects every year.
Hmm.
and maybe 6, 7, 8, 9,
Awesome.
depending on how many we can take up.
Hmm.
And but we felt that we needed to share our knowledge with a whole lot of other people, and this process is very slow, and while we continue to do what we do, we wanted to create very, very high quality, learning content,
Okay.
delivered in a way that can be easily consumed
Okay.
by people. And so we started working on it, and we're at a stage where we're about to launch two programs.
Okay.
One is actually focused on students and young professionals,
Wow.
and that's all about teaching them how to develop a brand, and of course my way, not the one that you're typically exposed of,
Yeah.
which is fairly theoretical in nature, and
Yeah.
at the same time full of vanity. So it's like, how do you really, really develop a brand, right? And so it's a instructor-led program. I'm the instructor, so that's something that we've reached out to a couple of thousand students now. They've shown a lot of interest to learn this skill, and I thought that's one way of contributing, where you teach people early on this science or this piece of knowledge, right? And on the other side, we've also created a program for business leaders.
Okay.
This one is on leading business transformation, and business transformation is not just brand transformation, though they're interlinked.
Yeah.
But it's a fairly complex journey, which every organization at some stage is faced with, where you need to make those big, significant changes to the way you do things. And most leaders are not trained to do that, because that's not everyday work. It's not like running operations. And they don't have the right skill set, the right mindset, the right capability set, even the right sort of people around them to drive significant change in the organization. So we thought we should create this program, we should create this content from all our experience. I've personally been involved in over 15 business transformations.
Right.
And it's been a very challenging exercise to be doing it. And then we said that let's also study some of the most amazing global case studies of successful business transformations and failed business transformations, right? And from all that, I would say hundreds of hours of study, several years of consulting experience has actually been distilled down into a very easy to consume, learning module or learning program. And we've actually created what we call as a 33-step business transformation framework, which is broken down into 3 stages. And it's like a hand-holding exercise, but because we can't literally do it to hundreds of people, so we've converted into a learning program which is facilitated by me, in the form of live coaching, live classroom, an amazing digital interface for experiencing all the content, and a leaders forum where people can share their experiences of their journeys of business transformation and learn from each other. So we put that together. We never thought it's going to become so significant. We just started it, and it's taken us 3 solid months. I think COVID has been a boon in that sense, but it comes with a lot of responsibility, because we felt that maybe we can put it out together very quickly. But anyone who's involved in the business of sharing knowledge, like us, it comes with a lot of responsibility. You can't deliver half-baked knowledge. You can't just use somebody else's case study to teach. You need to bring so much depth to it. You have to go into the absolute inside of it, and then churn out the most important elements which people need to take care of. So we've done that hard work, and we're now ready to share it with the world. So that's where we are. And we're just going to get more and more people to start looking at that content and learn from it. And so it should be a fun exercise. So because it's like when you're doing it one-on-one, one client at a time, you can only do that much. Now the patience is running out. So I've spent about 10-12 years. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to touch too many companies this way, not too many people. So let's create other formats.
Wow.
So and how can we go faster? How can we share this with more people? How can we inspire more people to lead in a more intelligent way? How can we inspire youngsters to get very early into that knowledge of what it takes to build a high quality brand, and so that they're not misled on the way. The chances of getting misled, getting distracted, So we said start early over there, and on the other side work with leaders, to coach them, what it really takes, what are the steps necessary, what do you need to get right if you have to be successful. So it's like improving your odds significantly, by participating in this program. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how do we? So how do we always? I'm looking for what's there for me. Like what I heard more from you was what's there for others. So that's funny. So where do we register? So how do we register, or how do we approach if we want to say go for the programs? Is it?
Oh yeah, you could write to me directly or write to my team, but we're going live with the web pages in a day or two.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
The programs are both open for registration now.
Awesome.
And but if you want any content pertaining to it, just write to me, and I'll have it sent out.
So brilliant. That looks like I have a lot of opportunity looking up, and I think people who are watching this, I think if anything here got touched, you got touched with, like maybe a thing about a purpose or source or anything, I think sort of would be so amazing for them to really start early, like you said. Starting the journey of discovering the purpose is something that everybody must experience at least. बाद में भले वो कहे कि अरे बहुत time लगा, but एक बार hook हो गए तो you just keep doing. And lastly, I want to just say, what about if you want to pick only 3 pieces as an advice to some brains around who are looking forward to their life, still creating a pathway? What are the top 3 pieces you want to share with them, like the advice sort of? I know it sounds a little advice or anything, but what I mean to really ask is 3 things that's on your head right now to tell them.
Sure, Shruti. So I would say the first and foremost, is to have an open mind, to what I call as the attitude of an infinite learner who's not stuck up with the knowledge he or she has, and is constantly looking to attach to himself or herself new knowledge, so, and not getting stereotyped with what you've always known as your definition of what this world is, right? I think being open to new knowledge, new experiences, getting exposed, being vulnerable, because one of the things with being open to new knowledge is that you have to be vulnerable in accepting that you do not know everything, right? And many people find that very tough to accept, and that's why they stop learning.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. If you are receptive, chances are something is going to hit you sooner or later, which can change your path in the right direction. But if you're shut and you're closed and living in your mind and in your house and just stay inside, and not in the literal sense, but in the way you operate things, or do things, is when you will find it very difficult to, transform your journey. So that's step number 1. The other thing I would say is that it requires you to be immensely patient, in this journey, right? I mean, whatever journey you're living, whatever you're aiming to be successful at, you cannot have role models who show you a way of doing it really quick, and for all you know, they were just lucky, and not because they did something extraordinary to be winning so quickly, and in that sense, do not set that as a reference or a benchmark. I think it's very important to genuinely read biographies, if you like, and you'll figure out that 99% of all those people who did anything extraordinary in this life ended up achieving it pretty late, and they took a lot of time. They took a lot of time, right? And they didn't. Of course, they went mad sometimes in between, but they stood their ground. They didn't let go off. So there may be family pressures in becoming successful quickly. When are you going to get married if you're not successful? Or, now you're 40 and you still don't have a big house. So those kind of things can be quite distracting, and they can mislead you into believing that success means something else. But if you're patient, I think it really, really helps. If you can build that as a capacity, it's extraordinary, because there's a time for everything, as they say. And if the time is not right and you're just constantly pushing for a certain result, you may get it, but it'll not last. So it won't be sustainable. in that sense. So learning to be patient doesn't mean slow, just means being patient. Yeah. Slow is what other people think, that you're slow.
But it's
and,
different.
And you can just go back and say, I'm not slow, I'm going really fast, but I'm just patient. So that's what you can answer back, right?
Awesome.
And the third thing I would say is that you have to be extremely truthful about what you're doing. You can't fake it. You can fake it to the rest of the world, but when you reflect back and see yourself in the mirror, you have to ask yourself, is this the version of myself that I want to see every day? Am I happy about it? And therefore that basic thing is going to keep pushing you really hard for change. And the fact that you still don't like your version, you still want something else, you still want a better version of that, can only happen when you're truthful to yourself. The worst thing that can happen to you is if you fool yourself. Fooling others is one kind of crime, and you can get away with it. But fooling yourself is like the biggest blunder you could ever make. And even if sometimes they tell you that fake it till you make it kind of a thing, and but you don't have to literally believe in it. You have to come back and stare yourself in the eye and say that, is this the version that you're happy with? What else needs to change? And therefore, I would say the fourth thing, you didn't ask me for, but I'll link it to it.
That's a bonus.
Is to seek help.
Wonderful.
If you figure out that this is not the version you're comfortable with, this is not what you're going to be very satisfied with at the end of the day, be extremely open to ask for help. And I think a lot of times we don't do that out of arrogance or out of fear, out of shyness, out of the fact that what will this person think if I sought help? Am I bogging them down? Am I bugging them? Don't worry about any of those things. I would just say that, if you think that there is still stuff you need to do and you're not able to do, in spite of your best efforts, seek help. And I think if you can do those four things, and of course there could be another big list, but let's just stick to these four and see how it takes you.
Yeah, I think yes, until the next time, and that gives me another opportunity that's something that we reconnect once more, and maybe I'll do a little bit of my homework working on the purpose and sharing out what all I learned, implemented, and how did I experience it. So this is a beautiful, I think we can go on, and I really appreciate and respect the fact that yesterday somebody asked me that how are you able to do so much in a day, like you're working, you're doing. I said I wake up early, and that's why it adds more hours for me. So I think this is an opportunity and a big gift I got the moment I began to implement the habit of waking up early, is having this first step towards my purpose, what I kept asking last night with one of my friends, discovering why am I doing this interaction with Saurabh? What is it out for others, for me, for you? And the one thing that the moment you use the word purpose, I kept reflecting, oh, my purpose is that, and that was so amazing to and that's where this energy comes from in this whole interaction. It's so vibrant, and I love the fact that there's so much more to learn, to discover, and it's not about industry. Ultimately, the whole thing comes to you. What are you looking up to, and what's your purpose, and how are you going to fulfill that? More important question is what fulfills you. So I think I had an amazing experience. You made the whole show so profound when I title is at Reinventing Yourself, and this is the perfect, of course, this imperfectly perfect way of beginning this journey. So thank you so much, Saurabh, for having, spending this time, so precious time of yours. One of the questions was, how do you manage your time? So I was like, wait, I already could figure it out. How do you do it? But anything you want to share at the last, and we'll just prepare for the next.
I'm just grateful to you, Shruti, for putting this show together.
Thank you.
It's the quality of your questions and your preparation, and the way you put yourself so dedicatedly. I've known you as someone who's like completely 100% and never,
Thank you.
50 or 60, and that shows up, in your thinking and the way you do your things. And I think this show is great because of you, and
Thank
that's what makes it special.
Yeah.
And so I think extremely delighted to be, on your show.
Thank you so much.
And it's completely my honor to be able to answer to some of your questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and it is a pleasure to connect. Actually, it was a soul connect kind of. It's like souls talking about the discoveries. I didn't expect this such honest spiritual moment in a time when I thought may go technical, but it was like it was beyond that, and I think I'm so grateful and ever be grateful. So thank you so much, and people who are watching this video, write to us if there's any question. I think Saurabh would be generous enough to answer that to you, and I said it on your behalf because I mean that's what you're here to serve, and we'd be happy to receive the questions or anything you want, any support in terms of seeking help. Maybe you are not aware. This space is going to be for, and like the courses you just mentioned, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of shoot, and people are going to get a great advantage over their own finding purpose journey. So thank you so much, Saurabh.